As Israel has been rocked by protests against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's controversial judicial overhaul plan. Recently in Israel, thousands of doctors walked out of work and labor leaders threatened a general strike there. Thousands of people protested on the streets of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv a day after the government passed a law that effectively weakens the country's Supreme Court. People in Israel are accusing the government of an authoritarian rule. The situation has resulted in growing unrest that's led to scenes where the riot police try to stop demonstrators with water cannons, as you can see in the visuals on your screen. Remember, the judicial overhaul bill abolishes the reasonableness clause, and also, as a result, the Supreme Court wouldn't be allowed now to overrule the government decisions going forward.
Israel's parliament, the Knesset, has passed a new controversial judicial bill that limits the Supreme Court's powers. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the changes are needed to rein in an over-interventionist court, while critics of the hard-right government accuse him of authoritarianism. The judicial reforms have also triggered months of protests and strikes. But what is the new law, and why is it causing upheaval? Netanyahu's government launched an entire legislation package meant to overhaul the judiciary back in January. It proposed to curb the Supreme Court's authority and grant the government more say in appointing judges. The result? Alarm among Western allies, vast protests on the streets, and a falling shekel, Israel's currency. Netanyahu hit pause in late March to allow for talks with opposition parties. Those ground to a halt 3 months later, and Netanyahu relaunched the legislation, scrapping some of the proposed changes. The new legislation contains an amendment that removes one, but not all, of the tools the Supreme Court has for quashing government and ministers' decisions. Up until now, if the court deemed an executive decision unreasonable, it could void it. Enter the Reasonableness Bill, which once in effect will prevent judges from doing this, although they will still be able to rule against government based on other legal grounds. So what's the impact of all of this? Legal experts and advisors warn that the changes will open the door to corruption and abuse of power because it makes it easier for government to hire and fire officials, potentially for the wrong reasons. A weaker judiciary could also be bad for business and harm Israel's legal defences abroad. Those on the street also fear the legislation threatens Israeli democracy, especially as Netanyahu himself is embroiled in a long-running corruption trial. The ruling coalition, which Netanyahu leads, sees the bench as left-leaning, elitist, and too politically interventionist. This piece of legislation is only part of Netanyahu's plans to reform the judiciary. November has now been set as a target date to agree further judicial changes with the opposition parties, but there is no guarantee that will happen. If it does, it would likely go a long way towards calming Israel's Western allies and reassuring foreign investors and international credit agencies spooked by the government's campaign.
I'm wearing this black shirt today because that's how we feel. We feel that the breach and the agreement between us professionals and the government was broken, and we cannot trust the government to take care of health, so we go out and we take care of health. In the health system in Israel, the minister has vast power, and he can tell the physicians what to do in every decision. And if the rule of reason does not apply to the Minister of Health, the physicians cannot work like that. It will be against the oath of the physicians. Clearly, tomorrow, the physicians will go back to work, but I can say that thousands of them are not going to be silent, because there is a strong feeling, including myself, that we cannot work as physicians when Israel is no more a democratic state. So many Israelis, more than 1,000 physicians, now are starting to look for options for relocation for other countries. Others are planning to take an absence of leave or to get fired from their work. And others, like myself, are going to continue and to protest and to look how we find ways to change this very bad situation. We cannot protect the public in this kind of situation, and we also will continue to demonstrate our protest.
I think it's a very dark day for the state of Israel, and I think the country that we know and love has changed for the worst, and I hope that this country will find a way back to a normal situation, which we have loved and known for 75 years. My future will always be in the state of Israel, and that is not a question. My children will be raised here, and we will fight until we get justice for this country and we change the mad people that are leading and running this country. We will change it. I will never give up, and my family will never give up.
This is really meaningless. The courts always come up with a standard, whatever it is, and that's what they use. You can't tell them not to use that standard. That's what I think. And I think that the people who are demonstrating, they should know that it's really a meaningless law. Meaningless. Because you can't force the court to do that. How are you going to do it? How are you going to enforce the law? You can't.